Let me tell you about ProHealthConnect.com. It's transforming healthcare payments, providing retailers a seamless process for over-the-counter and healthy benefit programs. By connecting retailers, health plans, and payment processors, ProHealth Connect creates one powerful, unified network. They empower independent grocers and pharmacies to accept health benefit cards without changing how they do business. With over 10,000 locations nationwide, helping more than 1.3 million people access the care and nutrition they need. Go to ProHealthConnect.com.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, all eyes on Iran, Trump weighing a possible U.S. invasion of some sort of Iran's Kharg Island. That is where 92% or more of Iran's crude oil exports go through. And that is a huge lifeline, a financial lifeline for Iran. $300 million a day they essentially make through there. Can you imagine if they're crippled there? Then you cripple Iran. Meantime, this is interesting. Everybody always says, okay, well, Pete Hegseth is a warmonger. He's always war. Well, today at the Pentagon, he was asked, what about these negotiations that are going on? By the way, in just the last hour or two, the defense minister of Iran confirmed that there are some direct discussions taking place with Iran and also with Steve Witkoff, who is the U.S. Special Envoy. So puts that to rest that anybody who says these talks are not happening. Obviously, that's not true. They clearly are happening. But here is Pete Hegseth, who came out and he essentially said, guys, that, yeah, we're talking because we want the military strength to be a last resort, but we will use it if we need to. Here's Pete Hegseth.
So on the talks, I can tell you, having been with Steve and Jared and the vice president and Marco and many others yesterday, they are very real. They are ongoing. They're active and I think gaining strength. And we appreciate that. As I said in my remarks, we would much prefer to get a deal. If Iran was willing to relinquish material they have and ambitions they have, open this, great. That's the goal. We don't want to have to do more militarily than we have to. But I didn't mean it flippantly when I said, in the meantime, we'll negotiate with bombs. Our job is to ensure that we compel Iran to realize that this new regime, this regime in charge, is in a better place if they make that deal. And so we'll continue. We're working hand in hand, but the primary effort is a deal. We want that deal to be accomplished if at all possible. If not, then we're prepared to continue.
And big stuff happening tomorrow. As I mentioned, President Trump is going to address the nation at 9 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow night. We're definitely going to be talking about that tomorrow night here on the Rita Cosby Show. And could he be announcing some big win? You just heard what Reggie said. Reggie had some great points saying, you know what? Maybe he's going to make some announcement that this just happened. And here we are announcing it. We just seized X. We just got this. Who knows? I mean, President Trump is the man of mystery. He's the man of surprises. And right when, Iran is sort of resting on its laurels, I wouldn't be surprised if they go in the cloak of darkness and have major continued success. And meantime, President Trump says he also may be at the Supreme Court tomorrow because they're going to hear arguments on the birthright citizenship case, which is a very, very big case. And President Trump was talking about that case today in the Oval Office. Here is the president.
The Supreme Court tomorrow is going to hear arguments about your executive order trying to get rid of birthright citizenship.
And I'm going.
You're going to go to the Supreme Court
I think
tomorrow?
So. I do believe.
And just sit there and listen.
Because I have listened to this argument for so long, and this is not about Chinese billionaires who are billionaires from other countries who all of a sudden have 75 children or 59 children in one case or 10 children becoming American citizens. This was about slaves. And if you take a look, slaves, we're talking about slaves from the Civil War. And if you take a look at when it was filed, all of this legislation, all of this, everything having to do with birthright citizenship, it was at the end of the Civil War. The reason was it had to do with the babies of slaves and the protection of the babies of slaves. It didn't have to do with the protection of multi-millionaires and billionaires wanting to have their children get an American citizenship. It is the craziest thing I've ever seen. It's been so badly handled by legal people over the years. If you look at the original birthright citizenship papers, they all happened right after the Civil War. The reason was it had to do with the babies of slaves. And hopefully it's going to say, because our country is being scammed. We're getting all of these people. They're selling the rights to them. People are making a big living, getting hundreds of thousands and even millions of dollars from bringing people in and saying, congratulations, your whole family is going to be a citizen of the United States of America. That's not what it was for. It wasn't for billionaires bringing people in or family in. It was for the children of slaves. And what you really have to do, and I don't think the lawyers talk about it as much, look at when the Civil War ended and look at the date of when this was enacted.
He may be there at the Supreme Court. So he might be at the Supreme Court, which would be highly unusual to see a president there at the Supreme Court. And then he addresses the nation tomorrow night. What did Trump say earlier this week? He made a great comment. He said, what's a day in Trump time? Eternity. You can get a lot done if you are President Trump. And as we were talking also about fanaticism on American soil, and it's disheartening, especially because we got those details about the guy who was inspired by Hezbollah, who rammed his vehicle, plotted, planned, was bragging to his family that he was about to do a mass attack on the biggest temple in Michigan. And that's what he tried to do. Luckily, it was thwarted by great security guards, and the guy took his own life, and nobody inside was seriously injured, thank goodness. But let's not forget, there is a huge Muslim population in Michigan, and in Dearborn in particular, there's 110,000 residents. Most of them are Muslim in that community. And there's been some interesting things that have come out of Dearborn in the past. And in fact, let me take you a little bit down memory lane. Let's go to cut 14, because this is the Dearborn mayor, Abdullah Mahmoud. And he was the one who, remember when there was a Christian pastor who wanted to do a parade and wanted to name the city. And he said, sorry, you're not welcome here. This is the Dearborn mayor. Listen to him.
Hezbollah, bombed the embassy in Beirut, and including many Americans. So I just feel it's quite inappropriate.
You are an Islamophobe. And although you live here, I want you to know as mayor, you are not welcome here. And the day you move out of the city will be the day that I launch a parade celebrating the fact that you moved out of the city, because you are not somebody who believes in coexistence.
Wow. You're not welcome here because he brought up the fact that a street was being named after a Hezbollah leader. I mean, in America, on American soil. And the Christian pastor was told he's an Islamophobe, as you just heard from the Dearborn mayor. Now, I bring up Dearborn because this Michigan candidate, and I had to play this clip again, this is just a shocker. He's a Michigan Democrat who is running for U.S. Senate. And on a recording which was released, he told campaign staff that he wouldn't comment on the death of the Iranian supreme leader when that happened. Remember when he was wiped out? And he said, I don't want to comment because it would make people in Dearborn sad. I guess a lot of them loved the supreme leader, one of the biggest tyrants in the world. And then when the audio clip got released, he called it a distraction. He didn't say it was wrong. He just called it a distraction. Here's the audio clip again from a conference call with this guy who's telling his staff, no, don't talk about the supreme leader because some people in Dearborn are mourning his loss.
So, this is going to destabilize the region. I also want to remind you guys that there are a lot of people in Dearborn who are sad today. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, I just don't want to comment on Khamenei at all. I don't think it's worth even touching that.
I don't think it's worth touching that. It's one of the biggest operations in U.S. military history. Thank God it's one of the biggest success. I don't want to talk about Hitler because it might make somebody sad. That's what we're talking about. This is a disgrace. It really is. It's horrific. And here's Michael Oren. He is he's the Israeli ambassador to the U.S., the former one, speaking specifically about Khamenei and this candidate's comments.
I think it's, what can I say? It's disgusting. Ayatollah Khamenei is a person who has killed tens of thousands of people, including thousands of his own citizens, raped and murdered women, gay people, hundreds and hundreds of Americans killed by this man. And the fact that anybody's saddened by his passing or is afraid to talk about people who are saddened by his passing is reprehensible. It just is. It's a moral meltdown is what it is.
That's a perfect way to describe it, Ambassador Oren. Again, the Israeli ambassador to the U.S., a moral meltdown. And earlier today on Katz and Cosby, we talked to Professor Alan Dershowitz, and he weighed in. Professor Dershowitz, I'm so upset about this story, and it triggered it when you talked about Michigan. This Michigan Democrat. His name is Abdul El Said. He's running for the U.S. Senate seat there in Michigan. And again, as you just pointed out, I know John's praying because wait till you hear this. This guy, he got on audio tape, said, we don't want to talk about the death of Al Khamenei, the supreme leader, what happened there in Iran, because it will upset a lot of my constituents are sad about the death of the Ayatollah. He is running. What is so wrong with our country that there are people who wouldn't be cheering for the death of the leader of a regime like that, and also that this guy is trying to downplay it. And then when the media came out with it, he called it a distraction, telling them to try to ignore it. Is he running for a seat in Iran or is he running in America?
Rita, forgive me for interrupting, but I just hope he gets the nomination.
Well, there are a lot of people who feel that way. But, what's happening to the Democratic Party is so disgraceful. As a person who was a member of the Democratic Party since I was 14 years old, it left me, and I am now working so hard to see it defeated in the midterms and in the 28 election, and it's because of people like that. I live right near Yorktown, where in the 1930s, thousands of Americans wearing swastikas and brown shirts marched to Madison Square Garden and cheered for Adolf Hitler. And so there are crazy people everywhere in every generation. But the idea of people living in Michigan, we know it's true, cheering for murderers, terrorists, rapists, and having somebody who's campaigning for office kind of defend them is a new low. And I would hope the voters of Michigan, most of whom are decent, would reject that kind of extremism. But if they don't, then the Democratic Party will continue its drift toward the extreme left. The Republicans are doing a slightly better job, not a good enough job, but a slightly better job in marginalizing the neo-fascist extreme right, as represented by Tucker Carlson and a handful of others who get a lot of attention from the media, but who are not as central to the Republican Party as these radicals are to the Democratic Party.
That was a beautiful, clean clip. We love that. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. And we will take your calls when we come back.
The Rita Cosby Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Let Century Management Solutions get you to your next medical appointment. They specialize in non-emergency medical transportation, connecting patients to care, safety, reliability, and on time. Their advanced technology platform seamlessly coordinates patients, healthcare providers, insurers, and transportation partners all in one powerful network. With over 200 trusted transportation providers, they deliver scalable solutions backed by real-time tracking and complete transparency. Go to SENTRYMS.com. This is the Rita Cosby Show.
And coming up on the Rita Cosby Show, we will also be playing a fabulous interview that John Catsimatidis did when we were on Katz and Cosby earlier with the Speaker of the House, none other than Mike Johnson, talking about the midterms and talking about the left losing its mind. It is such a great conversation, and I definitely wanted to share it with all of you because he is number 3 in line, as we know. And who better than to hear from Mike Johnson in a rare interview? We're going to be playing that too as well and get your thoughts because the midterms certainly are right around the corner. And the Democrats are blocking Trump at every turn. And I believe that's why they're blocking him on Iran. That's why they're blocking him on anything, because they would love nothing more than to try to get one or both chambers, the House and the Senate. And then you know what it means? Impeach, impeach, impeach. It means that Al Green is going to become the role model for all Democrats, the guy wagging his cane. Good luck, America, if that happens. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Max in Manhattan on line 5. Go ahead, Max.
Yes, Rita, thank you for taking my call. I heard several people mention about we're in this war with Iran to protect Western civilization. And that I don't believe, and I'll tell you why. Because if we're in it to protect Western civilization, we would also be protecting Dearborn, Michigan right now. We're protecting Plano, Texas right now, with a place called Epic City. By the way, they have 330 mosques there. We're not protecting that. They're overtaking us.
You're talking about, well, one of the things, are you speaking about the number in Epic City? I actually saw some ruling the other day where that is being blocked. And I think I saw Ken Paxton, who's the attorney general there, who's running for office, talk about that they had a big win, I think, in terms of doing some blocking there. So they are paying attention to it. So go ahead. Well,
okay, but this should be more in the news. This is like a velvet glove attack on their part.
I agree.
It's very soft. It's nice. No, we're friendly. It's no problem. You just heard the mayor of Michigan and what he said.
Yeah, by the way, that's outrageous, Matt? I mean, I get angry when I hear, how dare he say to a Christian pastor, "You're not welcome here."
Yes, what a set of basketballs he's got. A good deal of chutzpah that he has.
Yeah, cojones.
Yes, cojones. Very good. But there's one other thing. If you look at what's happening in England, forget about it. It's 50 times as worse of what's happening in England than what's happening here. You have Bridget Gabrielle. She's been speaking about it for the longest time. I really wish you could be able to get her on your show.
By the way, I definitely could. I know Bridget Gabriel. She's actually a very smart gal, and that's a good suggestion. I will try to get her on soon because I agree. And you bring up a very important point. I do think, first of all, it is very important what we're doing over in Iran and eradicating that. But I also agree with you that we also need to keep an eye on everything that's going on here, too. We don't want to turn out like London has turned out. And then you've got a wimpy prime minister who's afraid to, he's looking over his shadow, and he won't even allow at first U.S. flights to even go from UK airspace. Finally did it a little reluctantly. But he gives competition to Neville Chamberlain, and that's a really sad testament. But your points are very good, Matt.
The Rita Cosby Show
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Rita Cosby is on.
Well, Max from Manhattan was making some good points about the looniness that's taking place on American soil. And when I think of loony, I think of Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. And he's talking about reparations this week. Listen to this.
The last I checked, we are not in competition with other people of color across this globe. The only people who want us to believe that we are in competition with one another are the same colonizers that pit us against one another. Why would I take the word of someone who hates us all to drive us apart? What sense does that make? And so I believe we can call for black liberation and reparations and not cause harm in this globe the way white supremacy has caused across this planet. And anybody that would fall victim to that type of ideology, well, then maybe you need a little healing yourself. And that's okay, because colonization is real. I think one revolutionary said that somebody would stab you in the back with a knife and pull it halfway out and call it progress.
That's a doozy. And speaking of reparations and speaking of radical left, and this seems to be more mainstream than fringe in the Democratic Party of these days. This is not your father's Democratic Party, guys, or your mother's Democratic Party. But here is Pramila Jayapal. Of course, she's a member of the squad, Democrat from Washington State. And she says illegal migrants deserve reparations.
Then we also need offensive actions around prosecutions. We need real accountability because at the end of the day, the people that have been inflicting this harm need to be prosecuted. They need to be brought before us and they need to be held account for the trauma that they have created. And we are going to have some form of reparation.
That's an amazing statement that those who are here in the country illegally, that they've suffered harm because law enforcement is trying to track them down and arrest them or remove them, that those individuals, the illegal migrants, are the ones who deserve some sort of recompense. Well, the left really has lost it. And so earlier today, John Catsimatidis was talking with the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, number 3 in line, of course, there for the presidency. Very powerful man there in Washington. He's been at the heart of all these discussions trying to end the Democratic shutdown. And he also talked about the loony Democratic Party and what's happening with the midterms coming up soon. Here's that great conversation with John and Speaker Mike Johnson.
Well, we have a visitor. With us today is the Speaker of the House, and we have Mike Johnson. And, well, third in line for the presidency, but I hope he never gets there right now. And because we need the president of the United States doing what he's doing. And, Mr. Speaker, a lot of things going on.
Yes.
I mean, it's only Tuesday and a lot of things going on.
Right.
Give us an update of what the heck is going on.
Well, there's a lot going on everywhere. The president is the Energizer Bunny. He never stops. So he works around the clock, as you know, and does some of his best work late at night. So I have to try to keep those hours as well. And we've got a lot on our plate right now. But I tell you what, we're headed into a very important, very historic midterm election. And I've been in New York campaigning with our candidates and raising money. And it's going to take a lot of money to win. But I'm absolutely convinced we're going to hold the majority. We're going to grow the majority for the Republicans because we've got a great record to run on. We got great candidates. Our fundraising is off the charts because people know they're very motivated. They know the stakes are so high. We got to give the president 4 years to fix this mess and not just 2. And if we lost the midterm this fall, you know what would happen. It'd be total chaos.
It'll be total chaos, and they'll be looking for him. They'll go after his kids. They'll go after him. I mean, on January 1, when the new Congress takes over, we're going to have pure chaos.
I think they would impeach him in the first week of Congress if the Democrats were in charge of the House. But worse than that, to your point, I think they turn every committee of Congress into an investigative body to go after his family and his cabinet and his friends and lots of New Yorkers and everybody else. We just can't allow that to happen because it would also roil the markets. It would be bad for the economy. Everything would be a mess. We got to stay in charge, and I think we will. I'm very bullish about the midterms, and we're going to run right through the tape and make sure it happens.
Mr. Speaker, I mean, there used to be common sense in Washington where the Democrats and the Republicans would sit around, and even in the days with Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich, even in the days with Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill.
Yeah.
What's happened in the last 10 years?
It's a great question. Here's the problem. This is not our father's Democratic Party, okay? They've gone far, far to the left. The insurgent left has all the energy and the excitement, and they're moving the party over the cliff. They have left people behind, and that's why we had a true demographic shift in the 2024 election. We had a record number of Hispanic and Latino voters, for example, and black and African American voters, and Jewish voters, and union workers, and people who had not typically been with the Republican Party, but they came to us because they knew the Democrats were leaving them behind. And they're going further and further left, John. You know that. They're not bringing it back to the center. They're going further and further left.
Why did the Democratic Party allow the Democratic Socialist Party to overrule them?
I think it snuck up on them. I think you had a couple generations of not education, but indoctrination in university campuses, and they tried to espouse the merits of socialism and Marxism, and a lot of young people bought into that. And now you see the harsh reality of what that means. I mean, look at the mayor. He ran on this platform that we just give free things to everybody endlessly. That's not how it works. That's not reality. And so now he's talking about jacking taxes up through the roof. you're going to lose a lot of population. You're going to lose the people that pay the taxes, and that becomes a disastrous kind of cycle. So, look, this election is going to be very simply. This is not a contract with America election cycle. This is a contrast for America, and it's a contrast between the Republican Party, common sense, and the Democratic Party, which is increasingly crazy. It's common sense versus crazy, and that's exactly it's at issue, and that's what's going to be on the ballot this fall.
See, I'm older than you. It used to be in the Superman comics. Superman was the hero, and then there was Bizarro comics.
Bizarro World.
Where it's Bizarro World, and it seems like, and I used to be a Democrat 30 years ago, but you can't even do that.
When I grew up in Louisiana, I'm not kidding. I did not even know a Republican. I mean, there weren't any. They were all the old blue dog, Democrats of the South. But that party doesn't exist anymore. And this party, increasingly, 30 years ago, we were arguing about shades of regulation and how large the government should be. Now it's like, are we going to be a capitalist, free market, constitutional republic? Or are we going to be a socialist, Marxist utopia? That's the challenge. That's
what I think it's going to take, Mr. Speaker, is maybe if they lost 49 states coming in November, maybe common sense will come back to the Democratic Party.
Well, one would hope, but we don't see good trend lines right now. What's happening is you have a lot of little Mamdanis who are popping up around the country to run in all these races. They all want to do what he did here, and that's a terrible thing for the future of the country and the Democratic Party. But what's happening is the incumbents in Congress, who are trying to still be centrist or moderates, the handful of them left, they have to take further and further positions to the left in order to politically survive. So it's driving the party further to the fringe, and they're going to leave the people behind. The American people are not on board with woke policies and DEI and men and women's sports and trans surgeries and all this kind of crazy stuff. They want simple things like photo ID to vote. We're on the right side of all the 90-10 public opinion polls, 80-20 issues, all on the Republican side of common sense. And the Democrats increasingly are taking crazy positions. Right now, they have the Department of Homeland Security shut down. The Department of Homeland Security. It has all the agencies that keep Americans safe in a dangerous time. And they don't care because they're playing political games. People are not on board with that, and they're hurting real Americans.
Do you feel, you travel to almost every state, and do you feel the American people, the independents, the common sense Democrats, are they realizing what is going on?
They absolutely do, and if you look at the polling, it's very encouraging for us. Quinnipiac had a poll that CNN did a big story on last week, and the lead-in for that segment on CNN was, the Democrats are lower than the Dead Sea. Their public opinion polling right now is they're negative 55% net favorability. Democrats in Congress with the people. And among independents, they're negative 60% favorability. People are not buying what they're selling. And that's why they don't have a clear leader. They don't have a clear platform or policy. They're all about hating Trump, opposing Trump. Well, not exactly a great platform to run on when you're trying to solve problems. So we, on the other hand, have an extraordinary record to run on. The big, beautiful bill, the working families tax cut. People are feeling the positive effects of that right now. They're going to feel that all the way into the election cycle. It's going to make a big difference.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for everything you do, and I hope the common sense people, whether they're common sense Democrats or common sense independents, that they all realize that we're on the wrong track if they follow the Democratic Party right now.
My friend, I'm so grateful for your voice, for WABC. We live in the greatest nation in the history of the world. We're celebrating 250 years of this extraordinary experiment in self-governance. It is up to us to maintain it and keep it. Common sense has to prevail, and I believe it will.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I hope you have a great Easter this weekend. I hope we can go to church. We all pray that the United States of America will be great, and that the president. I've told the president last week when I saw him, was with him last Thursday, that the free world will not be free without him.
That's right. I talked to him 30 minutes ago, and I told him basically the same thing. It's leadership that makes a difference, and he's brought that back. So we're grateful.
Thank you so much, and let's catch up again real soon.
We'll do it.
What a great conversation. And boy, did Speaker Johnson have some good zingers there, saying the little Mondanis, he said, that are popping up all around this country. And him and John talking about how this is not your father's Democratic Party. It's like everything is Trump derangement syndrome. What do they stand for other than bashing Trump and undermining Trump? And I think undermining America by doing that. Can you imagine if they get the House? You just heard what would happen. Everything will be gridlock. They'll be calling for impeachments. They'll be investigating everybody in the administration. It will go on and on and on. I mean, that will be just paralysis for this country. And President Trump's just getting started. Look at what he's accomplished already so far. Imagine 2 more years. And imagine if suddenly a Democrat gets into the White House the next go round. Not going to happen, obviously, in the midterms, but 2 years later, it'll be wide open the border. Come on down, everybody. Come on into the country. Don't worry about it. No, you don't have an ID? Don't worry about it. We don't know if you have a criminal history. Don't worry about it. I mean, that is really frightening. Everything is anti-Trump. Listen to this. This is Congressman Gregory Meeks, Democrat of New York, and he was on CNN. He was asked, is he thankful that now President Trump is paying the TSA agents? Because remember, they were not getting paid for the longest time. Now they're just getting started this week, getting paid, these hardworking men and women. Most of them only make about $40,000. So it's definitely a noble mission, and bravo to President Trump for that emergency order paying them. Trump to the rescue. But nope, Gregory Meeks somehow turns and twists it and doesn't thank Trump. He blames Trump. Listen to this one.
Well, what we just heard from that TSA union rep is the person standing up for those hardworking American workers is the president. With that executive action that he took at the end of the week, they're now getting new money into their bank accounts finally again. Are you thankful that he did take that action?
Well, look, the president, if he's been saying for a while that he could have taken some action so that would have never had this issue. He could have told Johnson, make the deal. But he did not.
But he is the one who actually did take action, not the Congress so far. Do you support and are you thankful that he did take action when you're saying that the hardworking American worker of TSA have been the people caught in the middle?
The president, they should have never, you heard that agent talk about how they were in debt, the number of, extra interest and penalties, etc. That should have never happened, and the president could have prevented that from happening.
Does that make any sense? And then here is Eric Swalwell, remember, who was hanging around Fang Fang, the Chinese spy, and he's on MS Now. And somehow he turns it around that ICE wasn't needed on the streets, so they had a lot of free time and they could just hang out at the airports.
And to just further prove how unnecessary ICE has become in our communities, if they're able to go to every airport, and I saw them at the airport this morning as I flew to California, if they're able to stand there, do much of nothing, and pass out water bottles, why did we need them? Why were they so essential in our communities in the first place?
That is just sheer lunacy, sheer lunacy. And of course, we're going to hear from President Trump tomorrow night, 9:00 Eastern time, guys, addressing the nation with, quote, an important update on Iran. This is a chance to talk to some of those people who maybe only hear from comments like Gregory Meeks or Eric Swalwell, some of those crazy comments. Finally, maybe a little bit of a voice of reason. Let's go to Jerry in Manhattan on line 5. Go ahead, Jerry. What do you think?
Hi, Rita. How you doing?
Good. What do you think?
Hello. Yeah, I think I would hope President Trump addresses the fact tomorrow night that Iran has 1,000 pounds of enriched uranium at 60%, which in 10 days could be processed to bomb grade 90%. Is he going to leave that there? And if the only way he's going to get that out is with troops on the ground, and many Americans will die. I hope he addresses that.
Jerry, I agree with you. I think that that's an important discussion on so many levels there. First, obviously, the enriched uranium is a huge issue, and you can't leave it there. So how is he planning on removing it? Or has he done something that maybe we don't even know already? Maybe there's been some covert activity. Let's hope so. Or at least some plan that's coming in. And then the discussion, like you said, will there be any, quote, boots on the ground? And there's a lot of...
it would be a disaster. Many Americans would die.
Well, but you understand there's a lot of different interpretations of that. And the reason I say that, not the back half, nobody wants to see, of course, American troops die. I'm talking about the phrase boots on the ground. That's where I'm talking about, because there could be a level of some special ops guys going in, potentially taking that. Can they do something from the sky where maybe there won't even be any boots on the ground, or maybe there's somebody who's pinpointing it on the ground, gets out of theater, and then the strike comes in? There could be something, like that, that's not per se what you would call a ground invasion, if you will. And I have not heard anybody say that there is a plan for a ground invasion. They always want to keep it on the table because you never want to tell your enemy what you will do or what you won't do. But I would be highly surprised if it ever came to something that would be a significant boots in the ground, because to your point, nobody wants to see that happen to Americans. On the other hand, we also have to figure out a way to make sure that they never, ever can get a nuclear weapon, because these people will use it. That's the scary thing, Jerry. But your points are great. They're very important, and I bet President Trump will address it in some form tomorrow night. Thank you so much, Jerry. Everybody, we're going to continue, but first, support our heroes.
The Rita Cosby Show presents Support Our Heroes.
And this is the Tunnel to Towers Foundation Support Our Heroes segment with a very powerful story from Washington, D.C., where veteran John DeShane of Wisconsin was named one of several recipients of the Service Beyond Service Award, which honors Vietnam veterans for their community impact. It was given to him at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in our nation's capital on Sunday as part of the National Vietnam War Veterans Day events. Veteran DeShane served in the U.S. Army during the Vietnam War and also was assigned to the 614th Aviation Electronics Company, North 2nd Platoon in Vietnam as an airborne radar repair technician. He later advanced to technical inspector and foreman, earning him a Bronze Star for his heroic service. And of course, we always are so grateful for our Vietnam veterans here on the Rita Cosby Show. We love you. We appreciate you and your families, and welcome home. And everybody, support America's military and first responder heroes. Donate just $11 a month to make a huge difference to the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Be sure to check them out. They are the absolute best. Check them out at t2t.org. That's T, the number 2, T.org.
The Rita Cosby Show
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
It's the Rita Cosby Show.
And tomorrow night is going to be a biggie. The president is going to be addressing the nation. He says he has a very important update related to the war on Iran. And there are a lot of questions, as you just heard from many of you. But I think the president's going to lay out a compelling case and talk to all Americans, because he is representing all Americans and appreciates their concerns. Let's go real quick to Sandra. Line 4. Sandra, real quick, your thoughts.
Hi, Rita. How are you?
Good. How you doing? Real quick.
Okay. Well, a couple of things. One, why did Donald Trump pick tomorrow night to do the speech? Passover. A lot of people won't be home, but we can tape it, which I will.
That's a great point. You're right. With Passover, maybe there is a reason specifically. Maybe there's some military mission that's happened or about to happen, and the timing's critical.
Thanks for listening to The Rita Cosby Show. You can hear The Rita Cosby Show weeknights at 10 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here? Listen to this podcast now
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Why is the middle class shrinking? Why are people facing an affordability crisis while marginalized individuals called informals grow in numbers? Join me as I travel the world, speaking with people living in invisibility, the leaders working to solve it, and uncovering the hard truths shaping our economy and daily reality.
Download all of Red Apple Media's podcasts right now through your favorite podcast platform.